Huh?
Outlet.
Yeah, it's like the new technology.
Well, maybe you can do it now.
Right, just soft lighting, no hard lighting.
Yeah,
don't
no, you
like
don't
that.
need
I
those
don't like
those
that
strong
light.
studio lights. Yeah, that's right. Okay, great. That seems fine. So, yeah, I'll sit here. So, I mean, the questions I want to ask you are more or less the ones we went through the other day. If you could tell me about your arrival in New York and how that sort of impacted you from a fairly rural setting, I understand, to...
Well, being born in the rural part of South Carolina and coming up here, it's like the difference between living in the jungle and all of a sudden being transported into this unknown world, totally unknown. And it was very difficult to make that transition from being in the South, picking cotton, dragging things around, cutting cocaine and whatever, and then coming up here, getting on the train. Never been on a train in my life. Interesting. Arrived in New York, all the way up from South Carolina to New York was this trip through a long tunnel. Couldn't see nothing. Lights just flying by. Tunnel, dark, lots of noise. And then, boom! The train's lit, going up on an elevated thing. You look over the sides, boy, ain't nothing holding this thing, huh? And that was my first introduction to New York. You had to believe. If you didn't believe in New York, you're finished. So immediately I realized I had to believe the fantasy and go along with the fantasy and learn as much as I can from the fantasy. I walked by empty lots with buildings that used to be looking at what garbage all strewn all over the place. Weird kind of streets made out of rocks, stone streets. That was most interesting part. And then subsequently getting introduced into the educational system and can't come around realizing that this system is essentially not on my side at all. I mean, absolutely not on my side. And getting through all of that and stepping outside of the institutions and looking around for a job. And that was the beginning of my, I would say, facing the reality. Facing the reality means that now I have to, first of all, reinvent myself. After X amount of time in the educational institution, totally being screwed around, totally being beat up, just mauled. I was mauled by the time I left. I found myself at the unemployment agency. 42nd Street, 42nd Street, 42nd Street. How do I know to go to 42nd Street? Unemployment. Open up the New York Times. Thousands and thousands and thousands of jobs. None of them fitted me. So we all migrate to become messengers. I still see these students. People who sometimes try to get through being a messenger. How can you get out of being a messenger? Somehow or another I figured that out real fast. At least I could make some money now and move through the city and look at things I wanted to look at. Some days I would stay out all day, come back, go back to work again. Nobody even missed me. Nobody even said anything. Wow, what freedom I have getting paid to do this. But I realized that where I was working at was like the end of something, and I had to get out of that quick before the end actually came, and I was caught up in the end of it. So I've been racing the end for pretty close to 50 some years. Always over my shoulder the end. So now I get phone calls. Daddy just died. Who's Daddy? He came here a long time ago. What's a long time ago? I started this organization out of a reason. The reason being is that I looked over my shoulders and the end was right there. I mean, it was right there. What am I going to do? I had quietly retired from working in the system. I retired, can you imagine? What was I thinking about? To say, I'm not going to do that anymore. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do? You got to pay rent. I say I'm smart enough. I'm smart enough. I'm going to start working for myself. That's the trick. That's the trick. I'm going to stop working for the system 100% of the time. Get up early in the morning, sit on the same bus, bouncing around, get off the bus, go up to the job, and start thinking. Start thinking. That was my job. I was a great thinker. And I realized I'm a great thinker, man. I'm getting paid good just to think. You know? So I worked myself into just thinking that I should not do anything. All I had to do was think. So I said, let me try this out. I worked for this color lab, high-end color lab. Gave me the top job working. I got a motorcycle. I got everything. Things parked in the garage, you know, standard, you know. I've arrived, y'all, excuse me. So I just sit down on the curb watching him come to work in the mornings. Come to work. And he looked, how you doing, Alex? I'm all right. He knew. Wherever I was thinking about his job. He had no problem. I had to think, it was working, man. Brought it up to another level. All of a sudden the people there, you know, I came in under them, learning their job. I learned all their jobs, right? I was amazed, you know, how I was able to turn my head around. As a visual artist coming out of the rural South. In the South, you had to see everything all the time, man. You don't know which way it's going to come. Right?
You described the energy you felt in New York in comparison to that. Was there something that you tapped into?
No. You have to bring energy into New York. You have to, in terms of bringing energy, attract energy. And once you attract energy, now you have a certain amount of, let's say, posse, right? So I got into the posse thing. Jewish kid, Italian kid, we were all misfits. We all fitted together. We ran together. We played together. We conspired together. You know? Everybody had a role, and that role was constantly being changed. Sometimes I was a leader. Sometimes, you know, I wasn't even interested. I just tagged along behind because I wasn't in the game that everybody consensus with. So anyway, eventually, you know, that breaks down into, okay, you know, out of 10 people in this group here, we're going to form our own little thing outside of that group there. I got into that. So eventually that evolved all the way up to famous people in my life without even knowing. Because early on I realized in order to be somebody in this town here, you had to know somebody. And once you get to know somebody, you know, you move it up the ladder, so you don't have to worry about somebody cocking you on the head and the back and getting away with it, right? Because, you know, we all collaborate very deeply to make sure that wasn't going to happen, you know. It's like the street alliance. And then, you know, even within the street alliance, there's like fights, right? No matter what, you know, you get all the way down to yourself, you're fighting with yourself, right? of a reason for something. So I managed to work up all through that, and eventually I started an organization called Minority Photographers. And there I was able to call on all these people and all the powerful people I've gone through. First I got a job working at the district attorney's office. You know, where else to start other than at the district attorney's office, man? I got a job working there. I took over the photography department. Boom. But the Army kind of like swished me out of that. Boom. I'm like looking over my shoulders again. The military had me, man. They had me.
How long did you spend in the
I
Army?
decided to re-enlist just to get what I wanted. I needed an education again. I think it was a good way to get an education. They said, you know, it was the slogan was, either you take a chance with us or you take a choice with us. Okay, I'll give you a year and I'll take the choice.
Where did you serve with the Army?
I signed up to study photography. I need to increase my knowledge of photography. When I got the work job at the district attorney's office, it was about just sheer attitude and wisdom to get that job. And then once I got that job, I got another level of respect. This kid, oh, we need to go out and get your credentials. Do you testify that you or Alex Hall that took these photographs and such and such? Yes, sir. I said, man. Work at district, yes, yes. You swear, yes. I said, I got my license. After that, I was off and running. I took photographs of whatever I wanted. I no fear. At that important time of my life, no fear. Now I walked through Times Square getting all these ridiculous. I took images of ridiculous things in New York. That was the good part. It was so ridiculous, you know. Eventually, those ridiculous things became history.
Such as? Can you give me a few examples?
69th Armory, 5th Avenue and 140th Street. I can remember them building the highway there. There was an empty piece of concrete that ended in nowhere. And I used to walk by this armory. 1959 to walk by this armory. Prior to that, I had been in that armory marching as a kid. Cadets. You know, I was brought up that way. Anyway, I got out of that. So walking by this place, there was this big thing out in front. All these well-dressed. Sunday used to be, everybody had to look. They had to look. I mean, no matter, everybody had to look. What is the look? It's Sunday. Shiny shoes, haircut, white kind of hat on. You didn't see nothing else on Sunday like that. And people have rose up to that level, you know, like you got beat up pretty bad, I guess, if you looked the other way. So I walked by this place, and there was this new thing coming on concerning black people, right? Big time, right? All of a sudden, the Muslim movement was getting a rush. They had the special haircuts, and they always like was just, you know, they was right all of the time, right? So I walked by there, and they were all out there, right? And I took these photographs of it all, right? No fear again, you know. I walked inside taking pictures. I was getting all these pictures right. Because I began to learn to see, and now my photographs have to have a legitimacy behind them in terms of the document. So every image I went into was always about the document. Eventually I learned how to turn the document around into art. That took some doing. When people look at this, they can see they're nervous looking at you. No, I say, how they gonna respond to this? Eventually I cooled out of that area. You know, I was shaking up too many people. That's why I'm not too known nowadays, by the way. I shocked too many people with my art. So I started an organization called Minority Photographers to help myself first. Because because I need people like me. Because all of a sudden I realized that I was in trouble. Trouble being that I knew too much. And people knew that, and they wanted me to come over to their side to help them, right? I had to be very careful. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't be here today. I was stupid. So I formed my own thing. Out of that, I've changed the world. How many people know that? In other words, I got to the point where I knew that I now had the power to put something in the paper and say, I did that. I did that. Now I could say, look at that image there. That person came to me. I'm the one who got them up to that level where they took that picture. I'll open the newspaper nowadays and see all the people that went through me. And then people say, well, why do you do what you do? I said, that's what I started out to do. I'm still doing it. I learned how to survive. I don't get no support doing this stuff. Somehow or another, things happen to come to me at the right time. And I'm able to carry on doing what I do. Right now, I got the latest of everything. All the people who got into the latest of everything have fallen by the wayside. There's people who jumped across the digital divide with no support. I heard a guy last night talk about his zip drives. I said, he still haven't gotten beyond the zip drive thing. In fact, I hear fooling with the thing. He can't get it. I missed that whole thing. I'm glad. Otherwise, I'd be in the same as they are. Now, I could sit at my computer and I could travel the world. I sit at the chair there. And I say it's like in a flying saucer of Google Earth with all the layers, man. I could zoom down high res. Woo! I could see trails. I could see people.
How much do you use technology today in your work?
I am 100% into it.
Could you put that in a sentence saying you're into technology?
I am 100% beyond the edge of technology. Let's put it that way. What I know now, technology have yet to catch up with. That's where I was 1968, 69 is where technology is today. The edge, people make fun of me. I said you could read the writing off a golf ball. Oh man, Alex is talking this weird, ridiculous stuff. Sure, I've been reading into the technologies. Excuse me, where were you? What were you reading about? So when it came to high-res stuff, I went back to 1891, 1892, a guy named Gabriel Lippmann and what he did. Then I flipped back over to Daguerre and what he did. Then I flipped back over to Cabot to see what he did. Then I put it all together and say, well, you have to look at what happened to TV and the compromise that was made in that area in terms of what are we looking at basically? What can't we see? Why can't we see that? And then by 19 whatever time, all of a sudden everybody can see clearly. Why? Why can we see clearly now? We can see even clearer. But, are we ready to see clearer? Can we absorb all that information all of a sudden of knowing what the dimensions are? So that's why I say, eventually people like my daughter will actually be the ones who will create the tools for people to do that. Because it's all about, big and small. Big and small is the amount of time you have to figure out weight. So out here, this stuff on the wall, I started with this before I was born. Now it's on the wall. So people around me who helped contribute to this here, some are dead, and some are still alive, actually doing much more creative things than I can even consider being creative. My whole thing is playing in the tune area. I like the tunes. Push it to the edge. What can't it do? Okay, let's start all over again and try to fix it.
Can you tell me about your own entry into photography? When did you first pick up a camera?
I first picked up a camera when I was a kid. I was able to hold it for about 2 seconds. There was a little hole that I got a chance to peep in. I had fast mind, right? I had I could stop motion and still, hold it on my mind, and I could see it, right? It's still there. I learned how to do that. The kid, kids don't have a chance to look, see things. What do you like to do? And then eventually my mother took me down to get a photograph taken. That was a big thing, getting a photograph taken. For official stuff. My mother's French. To go inside this little studio, and this guy got into the little thing and all this weirdness around it. He films around inside with it, right? And he's making a picture inside, right? I was into that technology. I didn't know it. And he'd come out and he'd clean it off and dry it off, and that's what we got. And now we know what he was doing, right? And I would say it's been with me from the beginning. It's just a matter, it's a tool. No more. Like, once I got the tool, I knew what to do with it. I knew how to do it. I knew what it was all about. It was just a matter of learning. It's like sitting at the computer. Like, I could do that stuff, but I have to know all these commands. Once I know the commands, I have to hardwire these commands. People see me sitting here like, I'm figuring out the command. They say, what's he doing in there? Hey, man, I'm creating a website. I got to figure all the commands to, put stuff in, make all the necessary changes that I'm all the way up into the website, right? Wow. That's easy now compared to what it used to. You have to write codes to do this stuff. You don't do codes no more. I don't have to do that. Otherwise, forget about it. Won't do that. I'll pick cans out of the garbage. I ain't gonna do that. That's where the technology is. Some people are right for the next technology. Some people, they got left out. That's the way civilization is. It's an evolutionary process of cycles. And this to me, yes, is a spaceship. I think we were just cast away. And some other people, don't go near that place down there. Look at the chaos. We came out of chaos.
What about your experience? I don't want your coffee to get cold. Do you want to pause?
No, go ahead.
About your experience with this part of town, the Lower East Side, East Village, whatever you want to call it. What was it that appealed?
Ever since 1954, when I finally got into leaving the Bronx for real, as a culture, as a civilization. It's like people strike out to find because that didn't work out too well. So I started coming out to the village on my bicycle. I got into this group, was in the racing bicycles, and they went all over the place. One of the places they came racing down 7th Avenue with fixed wheels, give or take 30, 35 miles an hour, spinning out, right? I always like that little hill coming down from 42nd Street down to 34th Street. That gives you plenty of momentum to hit the flats at 34th Street and fly down to 14th Street, right? I mean, like 15 riders, right? Oh, fixed wheels. Everybody turned out to do each other. I don't know how I survived. Wind up in the village. Wow. It's like the lights are on. There's people. This, it's like they lived out here. Really? Wow. I would like to live down here. I like to just come out my house and step out, and there it is, man. I had to go through all that to get here. And that's one of the reasons eventually I wound up in the village. I went 54 all the way to 64. After the army. It was like this, come down and come down, come down. I fell into this fantasy of photography. Friends of mine had a studio on 25th Street. The World's Fair was lighting up. I had press passes. I was on the other side now. Freelance.
What about in the village? What attracted you to taking photos in this area?
People hanging out, people didn't move. They hung out in the square and they hung out all day. I got all these portraits of, it was like photographer's paradise. Photographer's paradise, if it was on the market, it was down in the Washington Square circle. Yeah. There's this one guy walking around with this Aero Ektar lens on a Hasselblad. Aero Ektar lens was those high definition lenses they use for survey. You want to see the golf ball, remember? These were the lenses they were using. People who knew that bought their lenses, right? Put them on the camera, and all of a sudden, instead of 2 1/4 camera, you turn this thing into an 8x10 camera with the same area in terms of resolution. It was better than Hasselblad. Aero Ektar, in case anybody really want to know. And I seen all this, and I began to get into equipment too. I had money. Every other day, every other week, I was going through the things, see what was new, going to the store, seeing what they had. I got into lenses, mainly long lenses. Boy, long lenses, man. Long, fast lenses. I bought in 1959. 5960, somewhere around there. One of the best lenses in the world. I didn't know it at the time. 400 millimeter f/4.5. 400 f/4.5. And I realized that's pretty fast. I shot that thing wide open, and I could see things, man. I look at the negatives nowadays of the stuff that I was doing back during that time, and I said, people didn't know. I didn't know either. It's gone. It's absolutely gone. Now, in order to get that, you can't get that anymore. Put it that way. You can't get it anymore. So I got it back then, resolution stuff. Mainly through getting into knowing what I had to do in order to get that stuff. I had to learn about developing, specific kind of development, not just of developers, times, temperatures. So I really got into that. I never really got into printing. I could never conquer the printing thing. I tried. I tried and tried and tried and tried to conquer the printing thing. I didn't have the patience nor the will to spend that kind of time in the dark doing that. So I spent more time out there documenting. I gave myself 10 rows a week, had to be developed. I didn't do just one image of things. I got a motor. Gotcha. I had to wait for the decisive moment. I knew the decisive moment would happen. I wanted to get it that moment. I was able to barely. I wanted to get that moment. And at that time, kind of drifted by. 70, I realized the whole photochemical process was doomed. Doomed. And I tried to talk about that, right? I talked about the new technology. You had film that basically did not have to respond to. It responded to what you've seen. Yeah, sure. It's possible now. We still got to go through this stuff, right? I loved that. Fell in love with that. 1993, somebody forced me to buy a video camera. $1,000. I knew which one I needed. I just couldn't buy it. Right? I always looked at it. Wow. And somebody said, "I get you a grant to buy a camera." I said, "Really?" I said, "Yeah, I'll sit with you and write the grant out." I said, "Oh, okay." I wrote out the grant, got the money, got the camera. And that was the beginning of my career in new technology. First piece I did went vertical. I videotaped David Hammons. Somehow they found out about me in video, right? Word got out I was doing this ridiculous stuff in video. So naturally it attracts all of them. Gotta be there. David Hammons shows up, bucket in his hand. "I want you to videotape me kicking bucket up the street." I say, "Huh? A bucket up the street?" I say, "Yeah, I know David Hammons, let him go." Bucket up the street, sure. So yeah, okay, I could do that. Programmed the camera, figured, okay, this is what I want to do with this one here, okay. Okay, kick the bucket out. She said, kick it. Well, I'll kick the bucket, man. I had set the frame rate as 1/10 of a second. I had flipped over the color. I had cut down on the amount of light. I wanted to get this drama thing going. I knew the trees. I knew my reality. I know what I want to get out of this reality. I see him as this dark image kicking something up the street. I wanted to get the noise of this thing going. Bling, bang, bling, bang, bling, bong, 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 bling, bong, bong. I already knew that. I used to kick the bucket myself as a kid when I got injured, you know? Working on a farm. Dropping it down the well, bringing up water with it. "Stop hitting that thing against the rocks!" Straight down in the well. Just throw water right up. Anyway, so came the bucket and all these things kind of like came to pass. I'm thinking to myself, I remember there's a movie where this guy kicked the bucket and he died. That's you don't do that. But he's kicking the bucket up the street and I'm videotaping this stuff. Holy shit, man, this is bad luck all the way down the road. I don't know how this is gonna come out. I know it's bad luck though. So I videotaped kicking the bucket up the street, got around, finished it, invited some people over, they talked about, sellers and steel, and I'm listening to the conversation, who's sellers, right? Found out that Sellers was his major competition with David Hammons. He had created this ironwork down in the middle of nowhere, and they was all upset with this ironwork. David Hammons used to go down there and throw shoes on top of it. He documented this. Somebody videotaped him throwing shoes on top of Richard Sellers' work. I don't know what that meant. And this video, subsequently, I started playing with it. What can I do with them? I have a project now. And eventually, we began to collaborate in terms of what this project is going to be. First of all, it would open up with him, just the noise. Blang, 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 blang. Somebody like Tito Puente going at it on the timbales. Blah, 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 blah. Eventually, you heard the rhythm. If you, bother to, get into the rhythm, right? And he kicked it across the street there, and I'm like hanging behind him. I'm now, the director, and videographer, and whatever else, man. This reality kind of like opened up. There's this white wall over there. This white wall used to belong to another artist. He was a street artist. His name was Curtis Chaffee, right? Belonged to him. David Hammond walked across this guy's stage. I'm thinking to myself, there's a normal group of people like him. They trash each other's work just like that. Anyway, eventually the piece got picked up by the Whitney, and they tried desperately to separate me from it. I refused to give up my work. This is my work, excuse me. I created this thing here. David Hammond was a performer, yes. But you going to make this thing into a video performance by David Hammond? Of course, no. This is my thing here. And I got upset with that. But I went along with it. I didn't upset the apple cart. So then once it got into the Whitney and everybody jumped up and down, Neiman, no, Alex Miller, no, David Hammond, right? Boy, got a lot of miles out of that one. So I decided to make this a real thing. I'm going to go way beyond all these folks, man. I'm going to show them what I know. So I subsequently got David to go along with making a DVD out of this.
Alex, I'm going to have to change the card. I've run out.
Okay, go ahead.
To take a second.
Ain't that interesting?
It's good.
What do you do, SD cards?
Yeah.
What kind of cards do you use anyway? I'm so confused about this thing.
Little
You found the
SD
difference
Sorry?
between the cheap ones and the expensive ones?
Normally not too bad, but they're pretty much the same. I mean, the more expensive ones are in theory less likely to give up on you when you need them. Because you sometimes plug them in and where's all this information? I recorded half an hour of this.
Yeah, I like uploading the stuff. I upload it, put a file to it, then go looking for it.
Yeah,
Let it
where's it
go.
gone? What happened?
What did I name it anyway?
Yeah.
I have about how many gigabytes? I have a big chunk of gigabytes of lost files.
Have a break.
No,
go for it.
I continue with David Hammond. He's kind of
Your coffee's going to get cold though, isn't it?
It's always cold.
No? Okay. Alright.
Once the piece got picked up by the Whitney, I decided to go back and do a DVD of the piece. Because at that time, DVDs it was like the beginning of a new era of capturing and actually storing information, being able to actually get it out there much more efficiently and much more higher package, high density package. So I realized DVDs had to be it. This was after whatever else, Beta, you name it, and then the DVD process kind of like began to break out. So I wanted to go into the studio and have a thing made up from the actual high 8 that I did of David kicking the bucket. So I took the original, which is very good quality, by the way, despite the fact that I kind of like played with it. You couldn't really mess it up, let's put it that way. This stuff could be shown on a big screen without even coming apart. So I got the DVD made. People bought it. Some people bought it. Going price of $20,000, somewhere in that area for DVD, 7-minute DVD, David Hammond. He invested pretty close. He invested a big chunk of money in the production of this piece, by the way, because he knew he was on the edge. He'd be able to get his money back easily. Businessman, great businessman. I admired him for that. So people put the DVD in their machine, knew nothing at all about DVD, whatever. They just had it, right? Because they could afford it. Put it in there, and all they heard was sound. Scared them, right? That's a big chunk of money for this thing. They ruined it. Laser in there. The laser ate it up. They get back to David and say, David, it's nothing. At the beginning, I said, that's what we did, David. They want they want to copy the original cassette. I said, no. Eventually, I guess they got used to what this piece was, because David had a reputation really ripping people off big time in the arts. Whatever. So then it began to like spread all over the place, and I had to really scratch to find the honor that was due me in terms of what I had done with that piece. First thought is to have a DVD. Say, okay, that's how you want to treat it. So eventually I disappeared beneath the system and began to work more and more and more as a leading edge video artist. My work nowadays is in an area where I realize that if some of it got out there, I'd be in a world of trouble, because people aren't ready for my stuff in terms of what I've done from these areas that I was working in into the areas I'm working in now within the video art process.
And now you're working exclusively in video, is that right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Could you put that in a sentence for me?
I found the best way to use document is to reintroduce it through the technologies and to be more familiar with how to use the technologies to get the information out there. Old ways of doing it is like wooden bridges. We no longer need bridges. What we need nowadays is people to understand that there's a new way to communicate and to be able to understand how to use these new tools to communicate. It takes a little bit of time and sitting down and learning it, but that's the only way you're going to change the world, is to use the tools available to you to change the world. And that's what I've done.
And could you summarize your relationship with the visual arts, how you feel, sort of what ties everything together?
Some people have specific skills that they're born with. I realized early on that my skills are very limited to being able to see. When it comes to writing, I had to sacrifice writing to see. So when I look to write, like I'm looking at what I'm writing and say, that ain't what I'm thinking about. Why am I writing that? That's my disability. So I've turned my disabilities around, essentially. So if I have to write, I have to turn something else off in order to write. But I've gotten to a point now where I don't have to do that. I have gotten better at seeing and utilizing the tools to transmit what I see.
And what about your relationship with the Lower East Side, East Village? How would you define that, and how has it changed?
You come to a foreign place where you are a foreigner 100% of the time. You're an outsider 100% of the time. And you have to learn to coexist with other people the same way. They are outsiders. You learn how to get along and always realizing you're an outsider in this environment down here. It's very competitive on that level. People that depend on you will turn against you when it comes time for them to defend their thing. And I had to learn that. So I learned basically how to love people. And I learned that me being an outsider created this defensive mechanism that I had to learn to dismantle and be more open to people and be more responsive At that point, that's when I began to actually become a better person down here and be a part of the community down here.
And in terms of how the East Village Lower East Side has changed, what would you...
Nothing has changed. Ever since I came down here the first time as a kid, coming through this neighborhood as a kid, I learned to look straight ahead. Now I can look up and around. Mean straight ahead, man, them Italian kids kick your butt, make you cry real bad. You will never go that neighborhood again. That's what it was like back then. When I showed up here, they were still here. They had gotten together with the Puerto Rican kids, the Dominican kids, and there I am. They have a way of discriminating against dark and darker people all the way around the world. We're discriminated against, depending on, the paper bag test. You know about the paper bag? Brown paper bags. People stood at the door with a brown paper bag. You had to pass the test to get inside the church. It still exists down here. It's the way it is. I had to learn that. It's nothing personal. I had to learn that. But yet and all, it comes at you. It comes at me all the time. It's just a matter of where my head is when it comes at me.
And that's something that you still feel today, or
Oh yeah,
to a
oh
lesser
yeah,
extent?
oh yeah. I gotta be on the run all of the time down here. I had to learn to walk slow just to protect myself. Because I could go fast. I'm running into people, right? Can't do that.
Is there an example of your time you were discriminated against?
That's all the time. That's all the time. That's all the time. I go in a Pakistani store, man. Same thing. I go in the, whatever. I go to Kmart. It's the same thing. It's the way it is. I was born, understanding. It's the way it is. Back then when I was a kid, my best friend was the white family who lived up the road. They lived in a house. I lived on a plantation. That was my best friend. In the barn, they had this old beat up, rusty bicycle that they never used. Wow. They used to bring out this old rusty bicycle. That's why he's my best friend. I learned to trade, man. I'll be your friend. You let me use your bicycle, okay? Okay. That's it. All the way up through the top, man. Even today, I make deals. I'm a businessman. Nobody knows that. I gotta survive. I gotta do what I gotta do to survive. I run a large photographic organization. I learned to survive and keep this thing alive without any outside help. Most of the help I got was contrary to my need. Distractions, weirdness, it's all going. You hear it. I'm sitting here trying to figure out, the computer. They have a big meeting outside. They're going at it, right? I sit here working one night. Somebody try to kick the window in. I hear some boom! Boom! Whoa, what was that? I wake up out of my thing coming out of the computer, right? I see a foot coming out the window. Gas out. No. Where's my camera? I was stuck in the middle of my shock. And then I was reminded of Iraq when them big old bombs fall 5 miles away. was in the Army. I used to be a unit shot. It's a different kind of wave that hit you. Boom, 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 boom. That's what was hitting that room. All of a sudden, them people out there was trying to get rid of me the fast way, right? I would run out there and knock this dude on the head and kill him. Now I'm in jail, right? That's how serious it. That was just 2 years ago. Because things were changing. Things change, but I realized you better watch your ass, change it. There's people coming in the neighborhood and say, who's he? I said, wait a minute. I was here, I've been here. I'm creating the foundation for all this here. You don't know who I am. You don't even know what I do. Why you dislike me? But I can't jump on this. You realize who I am? Yeah, boom! Easy. People disappear around here like that. Oh, he had an accident. Yeah, he was crazy anyway. As a kid, I learned how to defend myself. I was born a bastard. Nobody knows. I had to survive. Why did I survive? I realized I had a destiny. I'm different. I have a destiny. I didn't know that. You see, the Lower East Side basically gave me the will to do what I do because of how it treated me. I love when they would beat me up. Gave me more will. More and more will. That's why I'm still here. Otherwise, I can go home and sit in the backyard. Go someplace. Do whatever. Whatever. I'm retired. Checks in the mail.
And how do you feel about the Lower East Side today? Do you feel...
Hey, we're all here. Field glass right around the corner there. And, come on now. I'm in the middle of a vibrant art community. I'm not just here. I'm a producer. I produce. Things have come through here and gone out there. People go and stand before large groups of people, make speeches because of me. I help them construct their speech. Nobody knows that. The College Association of America. Most of the thought that came out of this person's mind who was talking to them came through me. I'm getting ready to do a speech. I said, good. Now I can get something out there. I was text messaging him, emailing him. I had a whole thing going with this guy. I had to get him focused. So when he stood up before these people here, he was going to make them hear something that needed to be changed. A couple of days ago, the president said, the school is, they started at the wrong end of the thing. Somebody done put out the wrong kind of conversation. Typical. The problem exists on both ends. The dropout rate, alcohol rate, suicide rate is on both sides of the equation, mainly higher education. NYU as a good instance. Kids jumping off. I went into that library at a special meeting, went upstairs there. I looked down and said, holy shit. Wow. Scared me to death, like looking over the edge of eternity. Easy. There's something that pulls you right over. A couple of months ago, kids, they found it. That's just, then you look at the amount of people that's being dosed, just to keep them level. Zoloft's, drug of choice. Kids, alcoholism. Friday night, Thursday night, all over down here. Where they from? NYU, Cooper Union, you name it. How do they study? That was the speech. My daughter got mauled in college. Colby mauled her to death. She never recovered. Genius kid. What happened to her? Now she has a baby and a debt over her head from the college loan thing. She was forced to drop out in the second year. Forced to drop out. The college still got the money. How many kids drop out? How many kids are basically prevented from drop? I mean, like, we lose our best minds. Other people come in and take those positions. Why? Because we looked at the money in terms, if the other institution, I want the money. So, foreign governments get the money for the kids to come here. My daughter, what's she gonna do? Flip hamburgers now with her kid? She can't afford to do that. She said, I'm going to a job fair. That's the problem. But, you know, that's where I am here at 4th Street Photo Gallery. Watching people go into the gallery right outside there. And I'm sitting here doing things on the computer. They give me the impetus to keep doing this. One guy came by last couple of nights ago, going in the gallery. Oh, you're working late tonight, huh? See, nobody hears that stuff, man. This guy going to the gallery, he's looking at me and saying, you're working late, huh? We're all in the same place. It's a state of mind.
And what advice would you give to someone wanting to start out in photography today and who is of your background?
I would advise them to get into writing code.
That's the future.
Mm-hmm. It's all going to be about code. The whole system getting ready to change again. New codes have to be written. It's going to be a big business. The whole system has to change because the old code simply cannot satisfy the new tools that's going to be put out there. So where we are today is like any other cycle. When the engravers had to say, okay, maybe we could form some lithographers. Yeah, lithography. Yeah, that's a good way to go. They locked it down. That's how it works.
And is there a photo from this area that you took that you sort of find particularly memorable or that particularly had a wide-reaching impact? Or
Yeah, that's a good question. Yeah, there is a photo. That one there. The bridge.
This one?
Yeah, with the bridge.
Is that's from the Lower East Side, is it?
Yeah, that's my favorite bridge. That was the strangest bridge. I love going there photographing that bridge. I photograph all aspects of that bridge.
And can you tell me a little bit about the...
They had a wooden walkway, and you could walk on the left side or the right side, depending on what kind of view. See, that space was built as a visual reality. And the thing was to kind of like explore that visual reality in terms of how the people built that bridge laid it out. Because the pedestrian walkway was just like this interesting environment to walk in. You had all these things happening over you. So I used to try to just look up. That was difficult, by the way, when I was going up the edge. And just go, watch this reality happen. Then I got the fisheye lens in order to try to explore that. So that's what I mean. I explored different aspects of the bridge. And then the other sequences is of people kind of like just stuck in time down here. Some made it in, some made it out. But the other people became stuck in time down here. So you had people with, with the hair, eventually that left and went out to suburbs, and they come in looking for the same. Hey, I'm here. Anybody left? And eventually you don't see them anymore. And now the pant thing, all the way down to the thing, that's shifting. Pretty soon you won't see that anymore. So like those kind of images, I managed to get here and there. So that becomes the chronicle of being down here on the Lower East Side. I didn't follow any one of those things. I just got a piece of it and kept on going. I never tried to make, give that kind of like any kind of visual emphasis. My whole emphasis was basically putting a time stamp to the definite changes, not what happened during or in between all those changes. I might get a few clips here and there, but that's not my focus. Like I say, the document became more important than anything else. Like just recently, I went down to see the parade and the baseball team won. I'd never seen the parade before, so I went down there with my video camera. I wanted to get. See now, what I get now is I get this dimension. I got all the sound. I got high def. And let's move like up in person. What would you see? And take that information, put it into the video. Then I wrap it around different pieces that I see. I could slow it down. I could double soundtrack. I could do, I could just keep twisting it together so I get a piece. Then once I get that piece, I write a DVD, take a look at it, get somebody in here who don't know what I'm doing, sit them down, see how long they can deal with it. Literally, see how long they can deal with it, right? If they can't deal with it, I realize I'm on track. Now I'll keep on doing it, right? Until I can get people in here to look at the whole thing. And I'm amazed, man, because I can't look at the whole thing. It put me into this ridiculous trance, and I go to sleep. That's the area I work in now.
Great. Is there anything else about the area that you sort of to finish off with?
Yeah. The high rises, the entrance of new kind of stores, how the 911 things simply haven't really been able to write itself correctly. And the amount of planning that went in prior to and after that time in terms of building and whatever have you, and like there was just this collision. So down here on the Lower East Side, you can see how some people managed to be able to construct things out of that collision, how other people simply, they had problems, mainly the buildings, the hotels that's supposed to be in place, the different kind of like smaller boutiques to support that new group of people that was coming in. This is supposed to be a high-end area, essentially, all the way up and down. And the whole economy simply can't support that. And the people who basically are left will basically be, again, like me. Some of the real end will show up and looking at you, like, you gotta go. You gotta go. And there were like a 20-year plan where I'm not supposed to be here now. Because I've been squeezed out eastward. Just like a pimple.
You've seen a lot of people leave.
They have no choice. And what's the choices? There's no choice. Either you leave or you sacrifice. Can you sacrifice? I got used to sacrificing. All I wanted to do is not to really go too deep into bankruptcy. It's always taking my shoulders.
have many friends of yours moved away over the years?
People come to me and say, I bought a house. 3 daughters. I bought a house. I was born in a house. Now you own a house. They're gone. Literally gone. It's a sacrifice. If you want to be an artist, you have to sacrifice of being an artist. It's not about that. It's about being somebody. A lot of people don't get a chance to be somebody because, their time ran out to be somebody. Some people work very hard at being somebody and subsequently become somebody. Basquiat. I knew Basquiat when he was nobody. All of a sudden, when he became somebody, he used to hang out across the street looking over at me. Why is he looking at me? Did he want me to know that he made it? On his last little, I made it. I didn't realize he was on that trip. If I'd known he was on that trip, I'd say, cool down, boy, and just sit over there. He's still been alive. So I feel guilty because of that fact. I went to see a movie. This lady did a tape. I filmed him in his studio out in California. At that point in time of his career, he was on the run. Seriously on the run. He had become a celebrity. He had money. He realized, that ain't it. I always wanted to do this. I never had money to do this. Now I got money to do this and I ain't got no time to do it. Then once he got deeper into it, he got beat up. And that's when he showed up over there. I didn't respond. I feel bad about that. So I went to see this document on him, and I left there with tears in my eyes. And after that little encounter with him, I began to totally open myself up to everybody. So in opening myself up to everybody, that means that something happened to him. It's going to hurt me. So I get phone calls. Somebody just died. And for a while I was the one like Bob Dylan to tell this song about this guy who wanted him to go with him to be buried. That became me for a while. People came to me for me to do their document. So when they're gone, I realized I had the document. So that's happening.
Can I ask you a quick last question? I read something on the profile of yours online saying that in the army they trained you as a sharpshooter, and that was in part because of your experience, steady hands from photography. Is that true, or?
Yeah.
Could you tell me a little bit about
that? People coming out of the country have to shoot, learn how to shoot. It's a natural thing. To be able to shoot from the hip, whatever. You have this vision. So when I went into the army, 300 yards was easy. 75 yards is difficult. I couldn't understand why 75 yards was so difficult. 75 yards with a 30-30, man. You shoot somebody 75 yards. They have to find pieces in some other place, right? I had trouble doing that. So I had to give up that. I got the next 300. Boom. Got my windage. Boy, I can imagine, man. That's challenging. That's challenging. You know, to be able to do that means going someplace back here, right? And being able to see everything. You see the wind. When you see everything in that space, all the vibrations. Shoot long enough, you'll be able to acquire that skill. You're hitting something a mile off. So instead of hitting something a mile off, you know, I prefer using lenses to get something a mile off. To hold an 800 millimeter lens. Shoot wide open at 4.5. And getting something. Nothing moves, right? So I had that skill, but I used it to do this. So all went to pass. Now I hear about sharpshooters. Sharpshooters using a new technology, right? All they do is hold the damn thing, right? The fucking computer goes to work. I said, holy shit, god damn, that's scary stuff. Some little kid sitting in some console way back, playing whatever, playing games.
Completely different.